Put yourself in the driver's seat to win your fantasy football championship with our league winners to trade for ahead of week 10. All this and more. It's the IBT podcast coming right at you.
I've been going dummy, out of bounds, putting on a clinic. Stick around, carrots in my hardware. KC, caught him in the crosshair. Look at me, been the guy calling Mr. MVP. Keep your ass on the bench by my MPC. Earn my stripes like I fixed this league. Your dog's on the turf, my dog's in the street. You can find me somewhere in between. Never a dull moment like a movie scene. About to do the ops like I did this beat. Let them keep talking RG3. Coming to you live. This is the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right. It is Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. This is the In Between Fantasy Football Podcast, your place for both a refreshing and feel-good take on fantasy football and NFL gambling. It's a huge day in the football world. NFL trade deadline and the first college football playoff rankings released. It's also election day across the nation, so I hope everyone got out there to let your voices be heard. I'm your host, Seth Woolcock. Tonight, I'm joined by a big business, light ranching son of a bitch, cornerback, wide receiver matchup expert, Eric Romoff. How you doing, Tex?
Man, we out here living good. It's actually kind of chilly in Texas, which is not a sensation that I am accustomed to. So it must mean that we're into the double-digit weeks of the NFL season, one of my favorite times of year.
No better place. We see the posers from the real professionals out here. Speaking of a real professional, we are joined by our NFL and entertainment betting stooge, Boston's boy, Steve Lawson. Double-digit weeks are here, Steve. Can you believe it?
I can't, because unlike Texas, it's warm up here in the Boston area. It is 66 degrees at 9:45 at night.
Wow.
That's what I'm referring to as cold currently.
Oh no, we had an 80-degree day on Halloween. So it's stayed balmy in this fall season.
It's been great. It's been peachy. The football has been great on both the college and the NFL level. NASCAR's still rolling on. The golf season's been hitting us good as well. So stacked program for us tonight. Front and center, rest of season league winners to trade for now. We're also going to do waivers a week early and in the scope. From the forum, we'll take your questions in the chat and over from the Fantasy Football Advice Network. And then some good news as well. The internet's a pretty toxic place right now, so we're going to make it a little bit better. Some feel-good stories for y'all. And we're also joined by the Wizard of Oz for this particular program. You can usually hear him, not always see him. Yinzer Ginger, former IUP Crimson Hawk producer, Kyle Scott.
Thank you for having me on this wonderful election day. Whatever season it feels like outside, it is voting season today, and then it is football season for the rest of the year, baby. Let's go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Shout out to the IBT family as well. Thanks for helping us reach 1,260 subscribers. We're trying desperately to get to 1,300 by the new year. We'd love it if you could help us get us there. So please like this video if you enjoy it. And also subscribe to the content if you're new. We got a lot of great stuff hitting the channel here, whether that's on the NFL, college football, PGA, NASCAR front, entertainment as well. So make sure you guys are subscribing. It helps us out a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Also, check out inbetweenmedia.com for more written content. Whatever you are trying to bet on, whatever you're trying to play fantasy on, we can hook you up over there as well. But guys, let's go ahead. Let's jump into it. I'm trying to win some leagues here. So let's help the people out here. A little bit of rest of season league winners in front and center.
Sometimes taking that first step out the door is the hardest thing to do. Give it a chance, you'll be begging for more. Save the spot just for you. We're all somewhere in between. How about you come to the place we can have some fun? Ain't gotta worry about knowing not what it means. Come and give me another, cause the night is young. At least I so thought.
This just in. Breaking news. Front and center.
Front and center. We're talking league winners tonight. Want to know also, how's everyone doing in their leagues? Let us know in the chat. How are things going for you? I will say this, guys. I'm not really eliminated from any leagues right now. I'm still in contention of all of them. Should at least probably get about 75% of my teams into the playoffs. Sitting at 5-4 right now in my big money league. So, a little bit on rocky water there, but been losing a lot of people to the torn ACL lately. So just trying to keep it going. Eric, how are you doing in your leagues, man?
Yeah, I was trying to do the math. I don't think I'm technically eliminated in any of mine as well. Probably my worst leagues, I'm sitting down at like 3-6, so
Okay.
it's definitely getting a little bit dicey. But the vast majority of them, I'm like firmly in the wild card picture, right? Like 6-3,
Mhm.
couple of 7-2s mixing in there. I also have a league of record, which is playing out in a very odd fashion right now. Basically, there are 5 teams that are 6-3, and then a bunch of dog shit at the bottom of the standings that we're all just
Yeah.
beating up on. So real polarized results in my league of record, but we're still out here, right? Even those ones that are 3-6, right? Like you best believe I'm making the playoff push, and the second that I'm eliminated, I'm playing spoiler. Like if you can't make the playoffs, you got to be messing it up for the people you're competing
Absolutely.
against, right?
That's what it's all about, man. Albert in the chat. Good evening, IBT.
Albert.
Good evening to you, Albert. Albert, how you doing in your leagues, man? Would love to hear from you. Steve, how's it going for you over there, man?
Good. I'm in so many leagues that I keep track of most of them. Some I'm in a rebuild, so I'm like, you know what, like whatever happens, happens in a rebuild. But my main league, my home league with my college friends, I am in first place, solidly the highest point scorer in the league.
Let's
We do
go.
median scoring. I am 13-4.
Let's
Uh,
fucking go.
with median scoring, I am the highest scorer in the league. Even losing Rasheed Rice this year, I am holding strong as a
Yo.
dominant force in the league. So I am hyped. If I win that league, that's all I really care about. Like at the end of the
Yeah.
day, that's the one I
Yep.
care about more
Yeah.
than anything else. I
Yeah.
would sell my kidney to win that league, and this might be the year.
I feel you. I finally broke through, won my big money league last year. It's a different feeling. There's honestly probably no other league I would want to win that bad other than maybe the Scott Fish Bowl. That's one I think that would be fun to take down as well. But yeah, I'm with you boys there.
That
Let's
should be
get
cool.
let's get some league winners though. Eric, who's someone you're targeting in trades right now ahead of week 10 that you think could be a league winner, a difference maker down the stretch for fantasy football managers?
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite league winners, one of my highest rostered players in Dynasty, and that's Chase Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that is making their own somewhat of a long shot playoff run right now. I know that there's a lot of buzz around this team because they went out into the trade market and acquired a running back today, Khalil Herbert from the Chicago Bears. And honestly, I'm not particularly concerned about it, right? I think it would be one thing if they went out and got kind of a early down bruising style back in the style of Zach Moss, but they didn't. They went out and they got a guy that's actually got a pretty duplicative skill set. It screams to me that they're looking for a guy that can spell Chase Brown and not someone that is going to compete with him for significant touches. So if there's any concern out there that it's anything other than that, there might be a tiny little buy low window opening for Chase Brown, but very likely not, right? The guy has just been absolutely setting the world on fire, including last week where he finished with 27 fantasy points. He
Oh,
also had
so good.
27 carries, right? So and the Chase Brown manager is on cloud 9. I doubt you'd be able to pry him away, but not impossible. So at least float something out, see if you can strike up a conversation and take advantage of a little trade uncertainty.
Chase Brown breaking out just warms my heart. And I'd kind of been hearing on the Cincinnati streets these past couple of weeks that this Zach Moss injury could almost maybe be season ending. I think it's more severe than we initially
Yeah.
heard. So I think that's really what the move for Khalil Herbert does. And look, I've been a Khalil Herbert guy as much as anyone this season. I think that's been very clear. I drafted him in a lot of places, instantly regretted that move. But I mean, he hasn't been able to get on the field over Roshan or DeAndre Swift, who neither one of those I think is a world beater. Swift's a pretty good player. Roshan I don't think is a huge difference maker. So yeah, I like this call, man. Chase Brown, he just went in my league of record this past week for it was him and Terry McLaurin for Jamar Chase, and everyone got up in arms about it. And on the surface, you would think that's probably a pretty bad because also I should say the person who has Chase and was giving him up 1-7, trying to make his way out of a hole, gave him to one of the better teams in the league. So everyone was really mad about it. And when I really sat down and there was a veto push going around, when I sat around about it, I was like, that's not vetoable. That's not vetoable.
Nothing's vetoable
No
unless it's
trades are
absolute
vetoable.
nothing should be vetoed unless it's pure collusion.
Yeah, and I think that's what honestly some fuckery has gone on, but between this team before he usually gets, his name is buddy system in the league, like no proven collusion, but always some discussion of it for sure. So
Bro, get him out of there.
no,
Smell
it's
you later, buddy system.
yeah, it's not real, but it's like it's joked about because he always does seem to get good trades going his way. But all this to be said, Chase Brown, I think, is an excellent trade target. I think he is a league winner. We on the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast Sunday night, Boggs compared him to like a light Joe Mixon at this point. That's kind of what he's been doing. So love that. Steve, what do you have here for your first rest of season league winner?
Yeah, he's someone who's come in very handy in that league I was talking about earlier for me, and that is Tyrone Tracy, the running back for the New York Giants. And the eye test showed you everything you needed to see. And I'm so glad Dable was on board that he is significantly better than Devin Singletary. It is not even close. Devin Singletary, listen, he's got good vision. He's got, good instincts as a runner. The problem is he has no speed. Tyrone Tracy has those instincts, but he also has the speed to back it up. He's a wide receiver by trade in college. Not unlike another running back that I so love deep in my heart, Antonio Gibson, who they are fast. They hit holes hard. This guy can catch out of the backfield, and he's getting the opportunities. Last week was a bit of a dud because he just kind of ran into a buzzsaw defense that's playing really well lately. But I expect him to step it up and go ham again this week, and he's going to get the opportunities. I am all in on Tyrone Tracy, and I think you could probably get him for pretty cheap right now.
I would love to acquire him. I don't know what the price tag is for Tyrone Tracy. And to your point, he is such a fun runner to watch because when he gets to the second level, he does have the explosiveness to get to the seam and bust a big one. I mean, we saw him outrun Minka Fitzpatrick a couple weeks
Took
ago.
It to your little user boys, right?
Yeah.
Showcase.
Eric, like, what do you think is like the value of Tyrone Tracy? Because I agree, I think he could be a league winner down here. And to that point as well, what happened to Singletary? Do you think it was just the injuries and then Tracy is better, or because Singletary was a league winner in his own respect? Do you think it's switching from the Texans to the Giants scheme? Because I know that Bobby Slowick offense was really great for him.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, right? Devin Singletary has been kind of a ham and egger throughout the majority of his career, right? But he got into that zone blocking system in Houston, and it really fit his natural skill set quite nicely. And it's a bit more of a hybrid scheme that they're running in New York, but it's certainly not quite as accommodating to his skill set. And then you couple that with a team that is desperately looking for answers and any positivity that they can hang on to. They get a rookie in there. He flashes. He shows that he can actually be something that the fans can get excited about. And I'm kind of surprised that Dayball did it, but credit to him. Like, I think it was absolutely the right choice to indicate that Tracy's their guy going forward. In terms of his price tag, like, I mean, I think he's going to be like a top 15 back for the rest of the duration, right? So, depending on how hard up you are for RBs, I mean, you can fetch a pretty penny for that type of player, and in turn, it's going to cost a fair amount to go out and acquire someone like that.
There was a couple weeks ago when he first started coming on that I was trying to acquire him, and I didn't really know the price tag for him, and his manager didn't either. He's like, I need to see at least another week or two of him before I'm willing to dish him off. And I wish I would have got in then because, I'm with you though, Steve. I think Tyrone Tracy could be a great league winner. Car Chisel in the chat. What's up, Car Chisel? Good to see you as always, man. Is saying, I wish they would give him more dump offs though, considering he used to be a wide receiver. Yeah, I agree with you, but I will say this Giants offense, it's kind of fun to watch now. I don't know if it's because Malik Neighbors just makes it a little bit.
The Giants are horrendous to watch. Oh my god!
I kind of I like guys like Darius Slayton. He's a big play waiting to happen. Wandale most times has been super solid. Like he catches the ball. I don't know. It's a tough.
I think a new quarterback going in there has weapons to work with.
The offensive line is worse.
Don't offensive line it. If I was an offensive lineman, I wouldn't even bother blocking for Daniel Jones. I'd actually be actively trying to get him smushed and see what you really got behind him.
When Thomas is out of that offensive line, it is bad. So I don't know. I like Dable. I like what he does.
That O-line is playing better than people think they're playing right now. This offense, the system is archaic. It's like watching paint dry. Maybe it's because I just charted this game from last week. I got to watch in depth every single play.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
motion that is illogical. It doesn't go anywhere. Their players are very interesting. I agree with you. Neighbors is exciting. Slayton's exciting. Wandale to a lesser extent,
I
right?
wanted Slayton
But
on the damn Steelers.
I
Oh,
know,
and we
right?
got Mike
We got
Williams
Mike
instead.
Williams.
That's
Yeah.
not
Anyways,
good.
back to the comment. I completely agree with Car Chisel, right? Like that's the skeleton key that can potentially unlock like
Yep.
top 10 upside
Yeah.
for Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah.
But this system doesn't support it. The Giants, they throw to the running back at the 4th lowest rate in all of the NFL. They just don't do it. They run these little 2x2 sets with some asinine motion, and then they basically just hand it off and hope that they can get more than 3.5 yards.
Yeah, good point there. I'll shift to my first league winner. It's the guy I just traded for last week in my home league, big money league, and it's Lad McConkey. I think Lad McConkey could be something down the stretch, and specifically, this is a time of year where I'm trying to acquire rookie wide receivers any way I can get them. Lad was just started in 40% of leagues last week on ESPN, so I still think he hasn't caught up to his price yet. I still think managers are kind of considering him a borderline wide receiver 2 flex, and I think he could be better than that. I think he could be a strong wide receiver 2 rest of the season. He's the clear number 1 target in this offense, ran 84% of snaps last week, 9 more snaps than the next wide receiver, our guy Quentin Johnston, 68%. The big thing, though, listen to these target shares over the last 4 weeks for Lad McConkey. Week 6, 25.8%, 18.9%. 20.1%. And then here in week 9, 26.9%. That is huge. That's what we want out of our wide receivers, is getting a 25% plus target share. And if he's getting that in 2 of the last 4 games, I think that'll continue to get better. He has the 5th best target rate versus man, and I think that should help down the stretch. The schedule's a little dicey here and there, but he does have matchups against the Falcons, Ravens, and Tampa Bay, all top 10 matchups for wide receivers. And I'm not really scared of the Tennessee secondary. I'm not really scared of the Chiefs secondary as well. And New England's getting a little bit worse as we kind of go down the stretch. So, yeah, I'm just really in on Lad McConkey, guys. I think he could be someone you can get for probably less than what his actual value is. And they're letting Herbert starting to uncork it a little bit, boys.
I think that's a great idea to go get McConkey. I don't think his talent matches his value. Truly, I don't. But someone has to catch the ball there, right? And like we're not gonna Quentin Johnston, or like I think he's good too. I think Quentin Johnston is the more talented player. McConkey is the guy who kind of
No
plays that Keenan
way.
Allen role. Listen, say what you want. The guy puts up numbers. He put up 120 yards this past week. Puts up touchdowns. I mean, he's a big play guy. I think McConkey's playing more the Keenan Allen role right now, and Quentin Johnston's kind of playing the Mike Williams role, and that seems to be what's going on right now. I know it's a different coordinator and all that stuff, but I think we're seeing that Harbaugh has realized that you cannot win in this league anymore just like slamming the ball down someone's throat 35 times, right? Like they got to use their franchise quarterback. That's where the way the league has gone. That's the way it will continue to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you there. Eric, any thoughts here on Lad McConkey?
Plenty. I love me some Lad McConkey. I'm closer to your side of the spectrum, that I think it's an open question as to who is more talented between him and Quentin Johnston. Credit to Quentin Johnston. He's actually been able to hold the balls that have been thrown his direction this year, which was a nice development. But because of his big play upside, I think your point about being able to go out and get Lad McConkey on the cheap is salient, right? Quentin Johnston, yet again, is coming off of this huge, splashy, deep touchdown performance, and Lad's kind of creeping under the radar, even though in terms of targets inside the 10-yard line, he's tied for 3rd in the league. He's getting 43% of all targets thrown to Chargers inside the 10-yard line. Your point about the matchups, there are some scary matchups in there, but Lad McConkey plays primarily in the slot, the 12th most slot snaps out of any wide receiver this year. So he is getting that much softer slot corner matchup, which on all of those teams you listed, that is very much so the pass funnel in that secondary. So I actually don't mind his individual matchups coming up. And I think it's a case where his role is far outpacing his fantasy production, and that is absolutely the type of player you want to acquire.
Jeremy in the chat asking us a question. We'll get to this here in just a little bit. Jeremy, and from the forum, thanks for hanging out with us tonight, though. We appreciate it, man. Hope you're having a great Tuesday evening here. And let's go ahead. Let's shift over to Eric's second league winner that he's trying to acquire here prior to week number 10.
Yeah, this is actually someone that I wanted to talk about last week when we were highlighting some trade targets as a potential down the stretch winner. And I credit to the guy. I was not big on him coming in, but Trey McBride, currently tight end number 4 on the season. You know, my concern with him was that so much of his productivity was in fact volume based, and there was this guy named Marvin Harrison Jr. coming into town that was going to eat up a lot of that volume. But now, you know, we flip around, we look at where he is in terms of the tight end rankings. He's 4th in total points at that position, and he's yet to catch a touchdown, right? Like, his volume has gone down a bit, but he's getting significantly more yards
Has
per
he
catch.
really not caught a touchdown? I know he has
Not
2
one.
touchdowns, but he hasn't caught them, right? One
Right.
was a fumble recovery, one was the run this past weekend. Wow, that's crazy.
He has yet to catch a touchdown.
He had bad touchdown luck last year too.
He did, yeah. So he's showing with a larger sample size that he can sustain production without that. And this Arizona offense is one that I think is on the come down the stretch, right? We're seeing a very, very competitive NFC West race. Kyler Murray is throwing the ball more week over week and continuing to see his arrow point up. So love the fact that you can go out and potentially, I mean, granted, you'd have to pay for tight end 4, but I mean, he legitimately has tight end 1 upside if he starts finding his way into the end zone.
Sorry, I'm looking around the screen right now. There was like a little bug flying around that just landed on my head, so I was trying to like swat that out there. Did not go too well. Yeah, I can get behind it here. Honestly, Eric, Trey McBride, I think he's right in that top tier. I mean, it's him, Brock Bowers, and Travis Kelce and George Kittle, right? Like, it's those 4 and everybody else. I think you could probably put like in that next tier. You could put Njoku, you could put Kincaid probably, but I think it's those top 4, and I think Trey McBride is high up on that list. And I don't know, maybe I was wrong about Marvin Harrison Jr. I came on here last week talking him up because I thought there's no way that he can get through the year and have under 110 targets for the season. And if that's the case, Petzig needs fucking fired. And
No, it's not listen, I've said this before and I'll say it again, and people don't want to hear it and they think I'm crazy. Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't separate well. That's his problem. Marvin Harrison Jr. is not an elite separator at this level. He could get there. I'm not saying he won't. But when he came into the league, I had Malik Neighbors as my number 1 rookie wide receiver because Marvin Harrison Jr. could not separate at an elite level even in college. He wasn't an elite separator. Like, it's just not what he does very well.
I would argue we've been on other sides of this coin, but yes, I understand your opinion. I don't know. I think it's usage. But you are right. Targets are earned to some degree. So yeah. Overall, though, let's go ahead and keep shifting gears here. Back to you, Steve. I know you weren't on Marvin Harrison Jr. coming into the season, but you were on a different rookie wide receiver.
I was on another rookie, and I got told over and over and over again that I didn't like Drake London, so how could I like this guy? Go trade for Keon Coleman. Go get your boy. Go eat your loss. Like, gobble it up. Take it for what it's worth. Like, you'll enjoy it. It's fine. Listen, welcome to the dark side. Keon Coleman is him. Right. And we're seeing it. Amari Cooper gets traded to Buffalo. Everyone's like, oh, they got their number 1 receiver. They sure did. They got him in the draft because Keon Coleman has proven that he is able to handle the NFL season and the NFL defenders and be a big play threat for Josh Allen and be a red zone threat. We saw the catch he made in the end zone this weekend, one-handed over a guy, like draped all over him. He's fast enough. He's strong enough. He separates well enough. He is a number 1 receiver in this league and will probably be a top 20 play, potentially higher, maybe top 15 going forward for the rest of the season.
I worry about a few things. Well, one, is he healthy? Is he still healthy? Because I know he got a little banged up in that game. I think he will be okay, but I think we did maybe see his arm in a sling or something afterwards. So
I had heard he was okay. So if anything's changed, I don't know about it.
Okay. Also, 2 targets this past weekend. That was a little weird, maybe just a little fluky. That kind of felt somewhat strange. Matt Collins, though, was running wide open. So Matt Collins had 5 targets, which was, out of the ordinary. I think like Khalil Shakir to me is still my favorite wide receivers because he's getting 7, 10, 7 targets. But Amari Cooper, I don't know. How do you feel about? I don't know where to put Amari and Keon right now at this point, Eric. They both feel like they're gonna zap at each other's value because they do play that X role quite a bit.
No, I don't think so. Right. I was particularly bummed that Amari Cooper was ruled out last week because prior to that point in his first 2 games as a Bill, there was a pretty clear trend that was starting to establish. He played 19 snaps in week 7. That was 35%. He jumped up to 38% of snaps, which was 50% in week 8, this being Amari Cooper. And with that jump where he jumped up to about half the snaps, Keon Coleman was still maintaining his about 75% snap share. And it was Mac Hollins and Khalil Shakir that saw their snaps plummet. So this would have been in week 9, the point where we could see if that trend held and Amari Cooper got up to that 70% rate alongside Keon Coleman, or if we saw something different happen. Obviously, he didn't play. We'll have to see how this plays out in week number 10. But at least the early indications are it's going to be Keon Coleman and it's going to be Amari Cooper in 2 receiver sets. And then it's going to be Shakir and Mac Hollins rotating, jockeying to try to get 45, 50% of snaps. So, Khalil Shakir has splashed. He's done a lot with fairly limited opportunity. And usually that's the kind of guy that you target as someone who's going to fall off, right? Like it's hard to be super efficient for that long of a period of time. So, until we see a point, like I've said all year, where Shakir is out there 55, 60, 65% of snaps.
But I feel like his targets per route run are insane. And is that what you think's coming down?
Yes, that these are the type of efficiency stats that always plummet. Tony Pollard, when he went from a platoon back into the starting running back last year, right? Like the examples out there are seemingly limitless. These guys that are just exponentially more efficient than anyone has ever been at the position generally kind of regress back to the mean, right? So he's either got to play more or you're going to see those numbers regress. Hopefully it's play more because I like the kid, but from what I can tell, I think it's going to be Coleman and it's going to be Amari Cooper leading this wide receiver room. And
there's something the Bills don't like about him because even with all those efficient, this is 2 years now that we've seen him do this, and they're still like, no.
I think it's his blocking. He's a smaller guy, so and they like to run a pretty run heavy scheme. So I think maybe it's just his blocking compared to these other guys.
Probably, but I think it's time for the Bills to come to the modern offense and go 3 wide more often. But yeah. Sure.
Where would you rank these wide receivers rest of season, Eric? Like what's 1, 2, 3? Amari Cooper, Khalil Shakir, and Keon. Who's number 1 and 2 there?
Pass. I don't feel great about any of them. I think it's going to be kind of inconsistent all around. I would probably put Amari Cooper 1 with Coleman as a 1A, and then Khalil Shakir is a pretty good gap behind them as the 2 in my confine.
Okay, bummer. Chaka checking in with us. Chaka, we'll get your question
no,
here.
Wait a minute. I want you to acknowledge me right now. Like that's the first thing we're doing right now.
I just don't know.
Acknowledge me.
I just don't know, Steve. I don't know. I don't know if I can call Keon Coleman a league winner at this point. I'm still there. It's not like the Lad McConkey situation when there's no one to compete.
I am the head of the Keon Coleman table. Okay.
I'm not
my boy
down
Roman
yet.
Reigns.
I'm not sitting there. I'm not sitting down yet.
We the ones out here. Raise them up. Get
all
those
right.
up.
I think it's just kind of a mess in this wide receiver room for the Bills, honestly. Right? Like I don't think any of them are going to be guys that you're going to feel super, super confident about. But for me, at least, there's a tier break between Cooper and Coleman together, and then kind of everybody else after that.
All right, moving forward here. Let's go to my final league winner of the night. It's Cedric Tillman, wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. He is the wide receiver 1 overall in PPR formats the past 3 weeks since Amari Cooper has left the shores of Lake Erie. Target shares include week 7, 25%, week 8, 21.2%. This past week, week 9, 23.9%. Jameis Winston, been slinging the pigskin around the yard. He's thrown the ball 41 and 46 times in his 2 starts. And as a whole this season, Cleveland is passing the ball at the second highest rate of the season, 65.2%. This isn't really shocking to me that Cedric Tillman has been this good. I mean, wide receiver 1 overall, that's fucking crazy. Like, we can't hide that.
That's crazy.
But the fact that he is breaking out in his 3rd year does not surprise me. Cedric Tillman was a better prospect than Jalen Hyatt, honestly. His senior year, he was hurt, but as a junior, nearly 1,100 yards, 12 touchdowns that season. I think it gives him a good chance of continuing to be a playmaker down the stretch for the Browns here. He's on bye this week, and the rest of season schedule is not the best. That is why I think other fantasy managers will see that, and you can maybe get him for cheaper than he will be. To me, I don't think he's going to be a wide receiver 1 the rest of the season. Probably no way. But I think he could be a wide receiver 2 for you. And in a time where there aren't a bunch of wide receiver 2 options out there, give me him. I think he is as talented as Jerry Jeudy. I think he's more talented. I've never been an Elijah Moore fan. He's a better than Elijah Moore. Jokers out there, but they're going to be slinging it around. So, Steve, you like Tillman as well?
I do, and it's not so much Cedric Tillman that I love. It's the kingmaker in Jameis Winston. Listen, whoever Jameis Winston's go-to guy is a wide receiver 1, and it's every single year that it's that way. So, I mean, we watched him, prop up Chris Godwin, Mike Evans for years, right? Like slinging that ball around. We saw what he's done with Mike Evans for a long time. Jameis Winston is the next best wide receiver 1 maker besides Matt Stafford in the NFL right now. Like, he will get his guy the ball more than anyone else, whether or not it's a good throw or not. He will throw to his number 1 target, and it does not matter. That's where he's looking most of the time. When the play breaks down, Jameis Winston is going to do what Jameis Winston does, and that is find his trusted target and just let a piss missile rip.
Yeah. Eric, any thoughts on Tillman? We've touched on him the last couple weeks on the show, and I'm not trying to get the hype machine too out of control here, but I still think he's a guy you can potentially get for less than value.
I probably disagree with that sentiment that you can get him for at value or as a value. A lot of that has to do with this 3-week stretch that you're referencing, right? Like, it's not all that often that a guy comes from literal obscurity, a guy that was less than 1% owned a month ago, to all of a sudden be the wide receiver 1 over a 3-week stretch, right? So people who have him feel like they caught lightning in a bottle, and they're not going to give him up for cheap.
Especially because a year ago it was Puka Nacua doing the exact same thing, right? Like, we're on a weird little streak of this happening.
The difference is, though, at least through 9 weeks, Puka Nacua largely did it like 9 times, and so far,
absolutely. I'm not saying that
Cedric
like it happened mid-season.
3
right?
times.
Yeah, he showed up mid-season, but thankfully it's because of a quarterback change, right? Like Deshaun Watson goes down, the Browns get a significant upgrade.
Gets out of the way.
And here he comes, right? Like, Amari Cooper's gone. Here comes Jameis Winston, and he's going to sling it.
So I definitely think that Tillman is a rest of season asset. I think he's probably more like a wide receiver 3, even last week, right? Where he had about 20 fantasy points, like 11 of them came on the last drive when the Browns were already entirely out of contention.
But garbage time is going to be
happen a lot for them.
Yeah.
Which is the counterpoint, right? But I don't think you should be evaluating or at least projecting 20 points a week for Cedric Tillman.
No,
nor do I think you should be paying that type of price tag to acquire him. I think he's like wide receiver 25 to 28.
And you think you're going to have to pay that? That's what you're saying? You think you're going to have to pay higher than...
Or probably higher.
I think he's top 15.
I have an offer out there. I sent Njoku straight up for Tillman, and
nobody's
on your end.
That.
I got another offer back without that one being accepted. So I'm thinking maybe they're thinking about it. I'm gonna try.
What's
to
the offer you got back?
It was not. I can't even tell you. It was Jonathan Taylor for Robinson and Tillman, and I already traded this guy Robinson, so I'm not trading back for Robinson.
Which Robinson?
Brian Robinson. Yeah, Brian Robinson and Tillman for JT. It's not a terrible move, but I'm okay. I'm not giving up JT.
I just don't know what the knee injury is for Brian Robinson. That's my only hang up
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah,
But I do
exactly.
have Tillman as a top 15 play the rest of the season.
Let's go ahead though, guys. We're gonna go ahead and get to some from the forum. I'm seeing a bunch of questions in the chat, so I want to get to those for everybody, and then we'll get into some in the scope afterwards.
If you're up, start thinking about what to do. Here in between, we got advice for you. Back and forth all day, trying to pick the play. Let's hear what them boys here had to say. Presented by the Fantasy Football Advice Network.
The Fantasy Football Advice Network. If you guys haven't checked it out, go to fantasyfootballadvice.com or download the Fantasy Sports Advice Network app. You're going to get over there. You're going to get access to a bunch of great content creators and just fans alike who are talking, bullshitting about fantasy football, putting out polls, getting opinions on things, joining groups, putting out league classifieds. Make sure you're checking it out over there, fantasyfootballadvice.com. First question I want to get to our boy Lucius. Lucius, thank you for the $2 super chat, man. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Lucius asking, is Jordan Mason a drop now? Great content as always. What do you think? What do you think, Eric? You dropping Jordan Mason? Because I do not think I can stomach it. I know the value is way lower, like probably 75% chance of, or 75% what lower than it was. I'm not dropping Jordan Mason. I actually I'm going to talk about him later too, but Isaac Guerrero, I think, is another guy that just should be on rosters because we don't know what happens with this double Achilles tendonitis. So I'm not dropping Jordan Mason. No way.
You had me all the way until you said that Isaac Guerrero should be on rosters as well, which probably gives a bit of a hint to my answer here. No, I don't think that Jordan Mason is someone that should be droppable right now. Look, a man is always only as loyal as his option. So it depends on who you're going out there to picking up, right? If you're picking up Tyrone Tracy, you're picking up Cedric Tillman, smell you later, Jordan Mason, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you are a CMC manager or you don't have as appealing options on your wire, no, Mason is definitely someone that you should hold. He still very much so is the handcuff to Christian McCaffrey. And as you alluded to, Seth, Christian McCaffrey, who is coming off of double Achilles tendonitis, who's coming off of a pretty lengthy career that is just riddled with injuries, right? You think about, the last season and a half prior to this one with San Francisco, and that was easily the longest stretch that CMC was ever healthy in his career, right? So the sample would indicate that it's very likely he will be injured again, and even if it's a 10% chance that comes to pass, having Jordan Mason can be an absolute difference maker in the playoff run for you.
Steve, when would you be dropping Jordan Mason? Like an 8-team league? Like how small are we getting? Because even in a 10-team league, I'm keeping him on my bench.
Yeah, an 8-team league, I probably can drop him, but other than that, no way.
Mhm.
His value's too high because we've seen one player really go through this Achilles tendonitis issue and then try to play that season. I've mentioned this before on the program, and it was Richard Sherman, and he wound up blowing out his Achilles. It's a real problem, kind of. I don't even want to call it an injury because it's not like he got hurt. It's just what tendonitis is inflammation of the tendon. And when something like that becomes inflamed, they
Mhm.
become weaker.
Mhm.
So the injury hasn't happened yet, but the mechanism of injury is certainly there. So that is what I'm definitely worried about with Christian McCaffrey. I seriously doubt that the 49ers are going to come back and just hand Christian McCaffrey all the carries.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're going to see much
Yeah.
more of a 50-50 split between him and Jordan Mason. So if you can stomach that and you can get those 12 carries to 15 carries a game for Jordan Mason, yeah, you hold on to that because who knows? Maybe McCaffrey comes back and goes, I can't play through this.
Yeah, we had Dr. Deepak Chona on the Fantasy Pros Fantasy Football podcast on Sunday night, and he pretty much said the same thing. Like, expect Mason to still get some work here. They're going to ramp him up slowly, and that's why I kind of like Guerrero a little bit too, just in case, if something happens. But appreciate the question, appreciate the super chat as always, Lucius. Greatly thankful for that.
Thank you.
Jeremy asking, Dobbins or CMC possibly on a snap count in half-point PPR leagues. What are we doing for this 1 week here, Eric? Speaking of CMC in that situation, are we getting invested with him right away here, or do you think Dobbins is still the safer play in week 1?
Yeah, I think this is something where we'll have to punt until we get up to kickoff time. specifically around the idea of this reporting of a potential snap count. Right, I'm not seeing anything that looks too solid in terms of them considering that. So if that ends up being the case, where
Calling
CMC is
Dr. Deepak
reportedly,
Chona a liar, calling him a liar, not a truther.
I mean,
That man went to
it's
Harvard.
analysis,
That man went to
right?
Harvard. That man went
Yeah,
to Harvard
there are a
and
lot
Penn.
of well qualified and smart people who are not in the room for the San Francisco medical staff, right? So unless he's reporting that outright, or I'm missing a direct report where he's quoting someone from within the organization, I'm
Go
likely
look up
firing
some.
McCaffrey here.
Okay. Check out Grant Cohn's Twitter. Also, John Chapman. Those are some great 49er beat writers. People are plugged into the team. John Chapman's a good friend. Got to do some work with him a couple years ago. But yeah, I don't know. I'm probably still rolling with Dobbins. Like, they're gonna have to kill some clock, bro. They're going against Tennessee, right, Steve? Like, I feel like it's a safer play rather than throwing out CMC against Tampa Bay.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, this is going to be a ramp up situation. Like, this man has not played a snap of football all year. That it would be wildly irresponsible for the 49ers to throw him out there on a full snap count.
They
It
always
just
do,
would be.
though. Yeah.
It would be wildly
Yeah.
irresponsible. You're asking for a disaster at that point.
Mhm.
J.K. Dobbins, here's the thing. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he does get a full snap count. At least J.K. Dobbins will get a full snap count. I would rather take that risk out of the equation. It depends on where you're at, I guess, right? Like, if you're in first place and you're in first place comfortably, sure, start CMC, see what you got,
Mhm.
whatever, go for it, right? Like, fuck it. But if you're really like in a position you need to win, you got to go with Dobbins, right? It's all positional and all, circumstantial. But if you're sitting there going like, I desperately need to win, you got to go with Dobbins and mitigate your risk.
Okay. 2-1 there for Dobbins. Eric still likes CMC, Jeremy, but Steve and I leaning a little bit more to JK, which is hard for me to stomach. Chaka, hey, would you trade any of the combo of Kamara, Walker, or Aaron Jones plus DJ Moore for Hall and Nakua PPR redraft? I'll be trading one of those 3 RBs and more. I would absolutely trade Aaron Jones and DJ Moore to get Nakua and Hall. I think you're getting the better player on both sides of it. Great schedule for DJ Moore down the stretch, Eric, but it's tough for me to trust the Chicago passing game on a week-to-week basis. Well, I feel like if Nakua's out there not throwing fucking haymakers at people and on the field, actually, he's going to be getting a high target share from Matthew Stafford. And sign me up for Breece Hall over Aaron Jones 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah, this is a pretty clear slam dunk for me, and specifically that pairing. I would happily let go of Aaron Jones and DJ Moore for Hall and Puka Nakua, right? People are upset that they started him last week, and I think he played like 3 snaps and got ejected.
Yeah,
That's
what
that type of
much,
stuff
yeah,
doesn't
rough.
happen all that often, right? So he was very much so back at the full shades of his former self in the game prior, where both he and Cooper Kupp made their return. I think that's much closer to his baseline than playing 3 snaps and getting tossed off.
Yeah. Are you with us as well, Steve?
Yeah, trade away Aaron Jones and DJ Moore for Hall and Nakua. Like, that's easy money right there. I mean, I know Aaron Jones is playing well, but DJ Moore's stuck not only with a bad offense and an offensive coordinator and head coach, but he's stuck with a pretty mediocre quarterback too. So it's not really worth keeping around, right? Like, just for the headache alone. I mean, I'd rather start Breece Hall over just about any running back in the league right now. And then, give me Puka all day. I mean, you make out like a bandit in that deal. Don't do Walker or Kamara, though. Don't make that mistake.
Capitalize on people being upset about Puka Nakua last week. And also, Chaka, if that's your core, I don't know the rest of your team, what it looks like, but that's a league-winning core right there. So congrats to you. Pull the trigger as soon as you can on that one, my friend.
Absolutely.
Diego. Did you guys ever see like the Diego show? Like
No.
it wasn't like Dora. You guys watched Dora, I imagined. It was like the spinoff of Dora, but it was Diego, and it was like her cousin. And I didn't watch it a ton, but my my little brother and sister, they were about that age. So Diego, I always think of that when I think of the name Diego the Explorer.
That's great.
He had
I didn't know Dora the Explorer got a spinoff. Like that's a weird series to get that's a really weird series to get a spinoff.
She got a fucking live action movie. Yeah, that bitch got a live action movie too, honestly. Yeah.
Hey, now. We're not going to disrespect Dora. All right? She taught a lot of us Spanish.
She did. Not good enough though. Question here from Diego. AJ Brown, Nico Collins, Juwan Jennings, Josh Downs, Quentin Johnson, Demarcus Robinson. Start 3 full PPR.
Well, we have to see if Nico Collins is going to make his return. If he does, and there's not reporting of some sort of snap count, then he's definitely out there alongside AJ Brown. At that point, I'm probably looking at Josh Downs of the remaining lot. Demarcus Robinson popped off because Puka was out. Quinn Johnson's going to be boom or bust. Juwan Jennings, it's kind of murky with how they're going to use him, Debo, and Ricky Pearsall going forward, as well as CMC coming back to catch passes. So I think you just have a cleaner projection with Josh Downs, and Brown and Nico really shouldn't be a question at all.
Okay. How do you feel about it here, Steve?
I go AJ, I go Nico, and I go Josh Downs. Joe Flacco loves Josh Downs. I think that's perfectly fine to slot him right into your starting lineup. Do what you got to do. I put Juwan Jennings a little below Downs, Demarcus Robinson, then Quentin Johnston. That's your. I'd go AJ, Nico, Josh, Juwan, Quentin, Robinson. That's the order.
Okay, yeah, I'm Nico. If Juwan's healthy, Juwan, Josh, I think you have it in the right order there, Diego. For me, I'm not playing Demarcus Robinson. I can't play the Rams.
Wait, you're playing Juwan Jennings over Josh Downs?
Fuck yeah, if he's out
there,
dude.
Get the fuck out of here. No, you're not.
Tampa Bay is a top 10 matchup for wide receivers that you want to be attacking. And also,
this guy's had one good game in his whole career. You ready to throw him out there?
Fuck yeah, I am. That was a fucking 40 burger.
Weren't you saying Josh Downs over Michael Pittman last week? Like you were, I think you said you were smoking on that Josh Downs pack was your exact quote.
Listen, I'm still smoking on that pack. Don't get me wrong here.
Bro put 2 feet on the ground.
I don't know.
Just glazed up Josh Downs and then pulled back on it. Like, what the fuck is that about? That's bad. That's bad advice.
I just think, I don't know. I was disappointed by Joe Flacco and that entire Colts offense.
So what? Josh Downs did fine.
Buffalo's a damn good defense, man. They're a damn good defense. Here's my thing. Do we even know if Nico and AJ Brown are going to play?
No, we don't.
Don't turn it into a Nico and AJ Brown thing. You're not benching them. You're benching Josh Downs.
Regardless, I think he's going to have to start probably both Downs and Jennings because I don't think Brown's playing this week or Collins maybe. We don't know.
That's fine, but Josh Downs would start over Juwan Jennings if all these guys were healthy.
Let's go worst case scenario. Brown and Collins are out. I would go Downs, Jennings, Johnston, Robinson in that order.
Yeah.
Yep. Agreed. Yep. Okay.
No, you don't.
You just the opposite.
Well. I agree. Other than Juwan and Josh, that's my only change.
I guess it's a moot point. If both those guys are out, you're still starting both of them.
Yeah, you're just not fucking starting Demarcus Robinson, and if both those guys are out, you're starting QJ. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Diego. Appreciate you, brother. Sorry about that. So we got a little heated. So I got a little heat in the moment, my brothers.
Yeah. Diego's out here sowing discord amongst the trio.
We love like family. We hang like family. We chill like family. We also fight like family. That's what we do here. We put them up. Out here. Card Chisel, start Andrews this week, or should I pick up Taysom Hill or maybe Hunter Henry?
Jesus Christ, this fucking name keeps popping up in my life. For the love of God, people, stop with the Hunter Henry thing. Do not pick up Hunter Henry.
Dude, Hunter Henry's been damn solid though, dude.
Oh, he's just not it. Stop.
He's
just
been
Start Mark Andrews. You're fine.
I will start Mark Andrews because that is a game I want to be invested in. It is a high total. I probably am gonna take the under in that game. I think it's a little bit too high of a total for Thursday night, but Bengals Baltimore is a game I want to get invested in. So unless you really need to pick up Hunter Henry this week against Chicago, I'd probably prefer not to play him. However, I do think Taysom Hill probably needs rostered, though. I really do think he needs rostered. So if you have to pick up him, I wouldn't hate it. But I do agree, Card Chisel. He has been cooking with Drake Maye. Absolutely. Like, I'm not putting Hunter Henry down. This is just the 1 week I probably would prefer not to play him. But
Cooking like hamburger helper. It's like the most
Yo.
bottom of the barrel you can go for cooking. Like, it's just not it. And listen, I love some hamburger helper every now and then. I love it in a pinch. Don't get me wrong.
What
but
flavor? What flavor hamburger helper?
Stroganoff all day. It's the one I grew up on. It's the one I grew up on.
Good.
Listen, I'm gonna put this out on the internet. Like, I didn't grow up like super wealthy, so hamburger helper like was a staple in my life. But like, yeah.
All I'll say is yes, Stroganoff the 1A, and then cheesy cheeseburger or whatever. That's the 2.
That and the lasagna one was pretty good too.
Eric, you picking up any of these wide receivers, and what makes your hamburger helper rankings?
Sheesh, I'm gonna go right after the show and pick up a box of that beef stroganoff. My brother in Christ over here, he's got the right call. That is absolutely the nostalgia throwback hamburger helper choice. In terms of the choice between these tight ends, it's very clearly Mark Andrews, a guy that was left for dead after 2 or 3 weeks when people didn't want to wake up to the fact that tight ends are a volatile position and there's going to be some down weeks. Mm-hmm. He looks to have largely shaken whatever lingering effect from that car accident might have been hampering him. And apart from last week, was out there putting up tight end 1 stats for like 4 straight weeks. Yeah. You also have to consider, granted, Monday was a projected practice, but the Ravens are playing on Thursday night, and Isaiah Likely has logged back-to-back DNPs due to injury. So you might be the only tight end mouth to feed. To be fair to Taysom Hill, I've got him 2 spots behind Mark Andrews, so he is having quite the season in his own regard. But of these 3, Mark Andrews is certainly the highest rated.
What about Hawkinson? I've been holding on to him. Do you think he could be useful later on? Yeah.
Yes.
I think keep holding on to him. Ride him out in the IR as long as he can. Is he going to be active this week?
He just
played
active
last week.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm a week behind. He didn't do much, though, I felt like, in that game.
He didn't do a ton, but Sam Darnold definitely showed that he was willing to throw his way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and let's move forward in the show now, guys, with a little in the scope.
I have the target in my sights.
Requesting permission to engage.
In the scope.
All right, it's in the scope. It's waivers a week early. We'll talk some mainstream targets quickly and then get to some guys that we like after the waivers run that you can pick up for free. Save that fab. I don't have a lot of fab left, I'm going to be honest. Some of us went a little crazy. Went a little heavy. Where Cedric Tillman was still available, went heavy on Cedric Tillman. And if I didn't have the fab for Cedric Tillman, it was probably because Isaiah Likely boned me in the beginning. So lesson learned on that one. Starting with the quarterback mainstream targets, Justin Herbert to me, I think he's a guy out there you can pick up. He's slowly getting the rock more, being able to throw that ball around the yard. And the matchups aren't terrible. Tennessee doesn't scare me. I don't think you'll have to pass a ton, but I think you'd be efficient enough against that defense. At the running back position, Ray Davis, Tyler Algier, Isaac Guerendo. Rank those 3 for me, Eric. Ray Davis, Tyler Algier, Isaac Guerendo. Do I have it in the right order?
I would probably flip Davis and Algier. I'd go Tyler Algier, Ray Davis, Isaac Guerendo. Of those 3, there's a pretty big cliff between the first 2 and Isaac Guerendo. Like, nowhere else are we rostering 3rd string running backs. Isaac Guerendo should not be an exception to that. In terms of the rostership here, I mean, they're both high implied value guys, that being Ray Davis and Tyler Algier. But Tyler Algier's got a little bit more of a stable role in this offense, right? So you're rostering both of these guys hoping that the dude in front of them has to miss time. But Tyler Algier has at least shown an ability to get you some production in a pinch, whereas it's really just big touchdowns or bust with Davis.
Wide receivers that we're going to be targeting on the mainstream: Cedric Tillman, Xavier Legette, Ricky Pearsall, Quentin Johnston, Jalen McMillan, Parker Washington, Sterling Shepard. And if you want to get frisky, Jalen Tolbert. Steve, we obviously know Cedric Tillman's our favorite out of this lot. Still rostering just 47.8% of leagues, though. Remove him, though. Who do you like? Do you like Xavier Legette? Is it the upside for Pearsall? Eric last week really liked him as a potential trade target. Quentin Johnston, I know you're high on him to begin with. McMillan, we haven't really seen the full Jalen McMillan experience yet. Is it one of those guys?
It is. And it depends, honestly, if they go back to Andy Dalton or not in Carolina, whether or not I would say Leggett or Quentin Johnston. But right now it's Quentin Johnston. I think he has a defined role.
Mm-hmm.
Some weeks he's not going to do great for you, but other weeks he's going to go really kind of bonkers for you. And he's going to, like I said, he's playing that Mike Williams role. And that's what we got out of Mike Williams last year or the year before. I forget which one it is. And I think he can be a real asset down the stretch when you're like, you know what, maybe you don't want to start him, but you certainly don't feel the worst about having to slot him in on those bye weeks that are coming up.
Okay. Looking some tight ends here. Hunter, Hamburger, Helper, Henry, Taysom Hill, Mike Gesicki. We already talked about the mainstream tight end targets there. So we'll go ahead and get right into the in the scope targets. Starting here with you, Steve. Who's your first in the scope target here for week number 10?
I think I broke the rules. So I went with Khalil Herbert.
You son of a bitch. No Thursday night football players. What are you doing?
Listen, you know what? I didn't
That's okay.
see that just a minute ago. But Khalil Herbert to me is someone who we've all been screaming to get more opportunities. And for some reason he hasn't. And every time he touches the ball, he seems electric and he does a good job and blah, 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 blah. Right? Now he's going somewhere. And Chase Brown, yes, he had a great game last week, right? And I was on the receiving end of an absolute ass whooping, courtesy of him. He opened up a can of whoop ass. He polished it up real nice and he shoved it straight up my candy ass. So it was tough. I don't think Chase Brown will do that again. He is not that guy. Chase Brown is not talented.
Wow, you're going.
That's just the way it is. Listen, this is a guy who couldn't beat out Zach Moss in the preseason for a job, right? I mean, let's call it what it is. They had seen him for years and still felt the need to bring in Zach Moss to be the starter.
I don't like Khalil Herbert. I wouldn't roster him personally.
Listen, you know what? At this point in the scope, we're so deep beyond like anything that seems viable that like I gotta go with somebody, right? And I'm like, who could potentially be a thing? Now Chase Brown goes down, Khalil Herbert steps in. He's kind of a league winner. I can't like take the guys we've already talked about.
Sure.
I still think he's the better talent. Like, sue me.
Yeah. I'd rather pick up fucking Jonathan Mingo. If we're talking about guys who were traded today, Jonathan Mingo traded to the Cowboys. I know Dak's going to be out for a couple weeks, but I'd pick up him because I don't know.
Mingo couldn't beat out a wide receiver room that had nobody in it.
I think you're a little hurt because Chase Brown dropped the can whoop ass on you. Eric, your thoughts? Would you be adding Khalil Herbert at all speculatively unless you have Brown? And then who is your in the scope target here for week number 11? 10.
Yeah, I started the show by stumping for Chase Brown. And even with that being the case, I would absolutely much rather add Khalil Herbert than Jonathan Mingo among the guys who got traded today. Look, I mean, Steve and I, in our analysis, staunchly disagree about the opportunity that is in front of Khalil Herbert now that he is a Cincinnati Bengal. But if nothing else, kind of like I was talking about with Isaac Grendo, he goes from being the third string running back to a high implied value second string running back, right? So, maybe he gets more of the workload immediately, maybe he doesn't. But we're at the stage of the game, right? Double digit weeks where it starts making sense to stash away these high upside implied value guys. So I don't mind going out and getting Khalil Herbert right now. You'll probably have to bid an extra $1 or $2 just because his name is back in the ethos because of the trade. But ultimately, these are the type of guys that you want to target, and I don't mind the ad.
Okay. And who is your in the scope target?
Yeah, I've actually got a very similar player in terms of strategy overall, kind of an end game high upside guy, and that's Audric Estime. We talk about Tyrone Tracy earlier in tonight's show. A guy that is a young running back that should be able to, or at least have an opportunity to emerge in this offense down the stretch. Reporting out of Denver is that they want to get him more looks, and while it's not a lot, he did see a season high with all seven snaps last week. So if nothing else, it seems like this Broncos coaching staff is kind of cooling on the idea of Javonte Williams, right? That that snap share for Williams has been decreasing really over the last 4 weeks. So seems like they're kind of moving away from him being as big of a featured role. Audric Estime certainly has the skill set where if he gets a couple of opportunities, he could pop. And now you're looking at another guy that is taking over a backfield for the stretch run.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Audric. He was someone coming out of Notre Dame. I think a lot of people liked him, and then slowly, didn't have the best combine performance, specifically in the 40s. He ran a 4.71, but had some pop this past week. I remember watching the Broncos. Oh, who was it? Was that Javante? No, it was Audric, man. And yeah, so he's looked good, and he's someone I've wanted to talk about for a while. And then this week we got the report that they want to lean on him more. So absolutely, I'm with you here on Audric. I'll round us out with my in the scope target. It is none other than quarterback Drake Maye. And I hate to go back to the quarterback. I just featured one last week, but I'm in a position now in a couple leagues. I've traded away my top quarterback. We had this conversation. I think it was on this program. That was, hey, if you don't have one of these top 3 or 4 guys, you're better off ditching who you have and just playing the streamer game. So I think one person that might necessarily not have the best matchup this week, therefore I think he won't be widely added, so you can get him off waivers for free afterwards, is Drake Maye, because he's playing the Bears. He was electric this past weekend. We cannot deny that. 29 for 41, 206 yards, a touchdown. He did have 2 interceptions. One of those was at the end, just kind of a lob city ball he threw down there. But that TD was cold stuff to Ramondre Stevenson to force that game to overtime. More importantly for fantasy, though, 8 rushing attempts, 95 yards on the ground. He's averaging 18.7 points per game in games he started and finished. That is QB 11 on a points per game basis. He also scored 11.5 points against the Jets in 30% of snaps. So who knows what that could have been another 20 burger as well. With him playing the Bears, I think you can get him cheap this week, and I might not want to roll him out there right away. If you're forced to, I think you can, and he'll be better than projections are giving him credit for. But Drake Maye, I think he's someone down the stretch, boys. Like, he's another one of these cheat codes. We've seen it with Bo Nix. We've seen it with Daniels. Like, you need guys who run. Give me Drake Maye, bro.
I 1,000% agree. So I've actually done this in my home league as well, as I've picked up Drake Maye just to stash him, because I know Jaden Daniels, who is my starting quarterback, has a bye week coming up. And at some point I need someone, and I want that rushing upside. Every time I'm on this program, I pound my fists and stomp my feet and say, give me a rushing quarterback over a pocket passer all day, every day.
It's Drake Maye, man. Eric, you like Maye too?
Yeah, I do, and specifically for the cheat code that you've mentioned, right? 95 rushing yards in that last game, 46 in the game before. He also got in on the ground against a very tough Jets defense, right? So especially when you're talking about kind of the broader context, right? Which types of teams are considering a quarterback change? If you are, you're probably going to be hard pressed to find a guy that is that involved in the ground game, and that ground game travels, right? Good matchup, bad matchup. It's something that he can lean on. So he's someone that I'm actually adding in a lot of places where I have like Jordan Love on by. He's one of the guys that I'm going out and acquiring where I'm reeling with bad decision making to draft Anthony Richardson. And now what do I do? Right. So he's definitely someone that I'm getting more and more shares of every single week.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Awesome, guys. Let's go ahead and round out the program then with a little bit of what we like to call over here good news. All right, it's good news. We're going to give you the feel-good headlines of the week. Steve, I'm throwing it to you first, man. What's your first feel-good headline of the first week in November? Wow.
Yeah. It is that the Romeo and Juliet limited theatrical run on Broadway is 1,000% worth your time. And I am saying that as someone who this past weekend went to go see Kit Connor and Rachel Zegler in that very show.
In New York?
In New York on Broadway.
Fuck yeah.
I got tickets. I went down and I had a wonderful time doing that. It was so much fun. It's such a good show. It's a totally different take on a wildly overtold story. It's violent. It's sexy. And honestly, the tagline that the youth are fucked is an absolutely perfect encapsulation of this show. It's unlike anything I've ever seen on Broadway. I'm a big Broadway fan. So I had such a good time.
Good, man. No, I'm glad to hear that. Broadway is always a good time. Eric, you been to Broadway yet?
I have not been to Broadway. No, I've seen some of the their road show productions as they blow through San Antonio or Dallas or Houston or whatever it might be, but haven't been up to Broadway proper quite yet. It's on the list though. Next time I'm up in the Big Apple.
Card Chisel, not a fan, saying he rather watch some Bryce Young film. Hey, give it a try, Card Chisel. I went and saw Phantom a couple of years ago with the girlfriend. She loves it. You get a lot of bonus points for taking someone to a Broadway show too, man. That's you gotta think about
Also
the
just,
SO.
expand your horizons.
Shane Barrett in the chat. What's up, Shane? Good to
What's up,
see you, man.
Shane?
All right. So here's my feel good headline of the week. The first college football playoff rankings were released. I am absolutely jacked. And listen, if you're one of the people who you don't necessarily like the change in college football, I think this season has been epic if you've really paid attention to it. And I really believe we're at the precipice of a renaissance of the collegiate game. The 12-team playoff gives more hopes for more fan bases. I spent all Saturday in the garage with some friends from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. watching ball all day, drinking beer. And honestly, one of my friends turned to me at the end of the day and he's like, I think it's got me back into college football. I'm hooked, man. And looking at this playoff bracket, we'll pull it up here for you. It is sweet. I mean, again, we're far away. This is the first edition of it. A lot's going to change just in the next week, but not only do we have playoff games at places iconic like Happy Valley, Columbus, Austin, Athens, Eugene, but Provo, Utah, I know those sons of bitches Mormons, they're going to get up, guys. I know they're going to get up for that one if that were to come to fruition. And give it another week, and maybe we see a place like Bloomington, Indiana host a college football playoff game. So I'm jazzed. I'm pumped up. How do you guys feel about this, looking at the college football projected playoff bracket round one?
I like it. I am such a fan of going to the 12-team system. This is the way it should be. That anyone who's like all hung up, they're like, oh, it should have been for that, bro. Go touch grass or something. Like, we don't need your comment here. This is the way it should be. Look at how exciting this is. Look how many more teams get to be involved in this. You got teams like Boise State, BYU, Indiana, like teams that are really overperforming this year. But you know what? They're winning games and they should be rewarded with a chance. Just because their name isn't as sexy as Ohio State or Texas doesn't mean that they should not be getting represented in the college football playoff. This is what football and sport is all about. It's competition and proving that you belong in the championship conversation. And you're going to tell me that the committee would have kept Michael Myers himself out of the college football playoff in that Boise State beast running back? No, stop it. He 1000% should be in the playoff. If that team can run the table, they should be ranked higher.
Yeah, I like what we've been seeing out of this new college landscape, the new conferences, Eric. It's weird sometimes seeing some of these former Pac-12 teams play in the Big Ten, and they're getting their ass kicked a little bit as well. If you're a fan of someone like Washington or not Oregon's been kicking everyone's ass, but besides them, like I feel like we have seen Washington struggle a little bit with it, but still, what's your thoughts on the college football playoff bracket?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty close to Steve's point of view here, right? It's nice to see them finally getting it right. The idea of a misstep in September being essentially the end of your postseason hopes as a college football fan was always kind of watered down. And while people will say that it kind of takes the importance out of every game, that is absolutely not the case, right? Every single one of these 12 teams and the couple that are on the outside looking in, all of their games down the stretch run are immensely important as they try to make their way into the dance. And at least looking at how this bracket is shaping out right now, poor Miami. Could you imagine having a first round bye and having to play the winner of Texas, Alabama as your reward? Sheesh.
Yeah, and And even like more interesting, like Indiana, Tennessee, that is a crazy. I mean, that is such a fun game there. Two great defenses. You have a young emerging quarterback in Curtis Rourke coming out of the MAC, maybe in the Heisman conversation,
I have a
25-1.
question.
Yeah.
Would you guys reseed Miami to the 2 and Georgia to the 3, considering Miami is undefeated, and then make the SEC kind of earn their way to that semifinal spot by going through each other, rather than what appears to be another kind of like shady looking, like, yeah, we'll have the SEC almost no matter what get represented?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Georgia's absolutely getting a pass here, playing the winner of Notre Dame Penn State.
And honestly, I was writing out a Georgia alternate line 13.5 on Saturday, and it covered, and it was the most backdoor fucking cover I've ever seen in my life, I felt like. And Florida's quarterback got hurt, or Georgia might have lost that game outright. So Georgia's not like I
Like, you
with
know what
that.
I mean, though? Like, it looks.
If anyone should be number two, I mean,
I think it should be Miami.
yeah, I mean, but dude, Miami's gotten fucking bailed out too. They've got really bailed out
But they're
against
undefeated. At the end of
Yeah,
the day, they are undefeated.
they got bailed out against Virginia Tech by, like, I mean, Charlotte called into that game and changed the outcome of that one. It felt like. So I don't know. We'll see in a couple weeks. Georgia, they still have a couple big ones on the slate. Miami, they got to get through the rest of the ACC. They're probably will face SMU in that title game, or Clemson. So I want to see more from Miami. They haven't faced too many great teams yet. So, but Steve, I think it's a great conversation to have. And I think, yeah, like as much as I love Penn State, I think getting Penn State in the second round is a much better deal than getting Texas potentially in the second round.
Yeah, it's ugly.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, we'll shift out of there. We'll get back to some more good news. Eric, round us out. What was your good news for this week?
Yeah, obviously here in the States, it is election day, and that has a lot of people spun up, riled up, right? So my good news is a bit more of a macro point, which is based on the data that we have for early in-person voting, early voting by mail, and now some of the day of voting. Looks like voter turnout is going to hit an all-time high, which, at least for me, like, whatever your politics are, whatever your ideology
Yeah.
is, the more that we as an electorate are involved, the better off it is for everyone, right? The reason why there are candidates that people don't like out there is that they don't have to win over a majority of voting age voters in the United States, right? The more people that are involved, the higher that level of scrutiny, the better quality candidates it is for everyone. And it is so far a promising sign of things to come, that people are getting out there and making sure that their voice is heard.
That's it, man. That's literally it. It's a right, it's one of our rights, man. We got to use it. It is such a privilege in this country to be able to voice our opinion. So I agree with you there. Thanks for sharing that. And just happy that everyone got out and vote. Hopefully it's a trend that we see continue. Before we get out of here, one question from Lucius: who do you prefer rest of the season, D-Hop or Marv? I'm still Marv. I actually saw this being talked about in one of my leagues. Someone was offered this trade and they didn't know whether to accept it or not. So, like, I'm just going to pull the league, I guess. And who do you guys like? I'm still with
Hopkins.
Marv. Eric?
I get to be the tiebreak here. I'm still with Marv as well. I think that we're going to see Travis Kelce continue to come on in this offense. I think we're going to see Juju potentially return at some point. Awesome sign for DeAndre Hopkins, right? Huge step in the right direction last week, but it is a 1 week sample size. To be fair, in my rest of season rankings, these guys are like 4 players apart, so you're kind of splitting hairs here. I'm glad we had a chance to get back to Marvin Harrison Jr. I know we talked about him earlier in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Marvin Harrison had one of the toughest matchups last week with Johnson of the Bears, so
Yeah.
I would take his performance in week 9 with a grain of salt as well.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. If you are new, easiest way to support us here is subscribe. If you are a returning subscriber as well, just give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy this type of content. Leave us a comment. Let us know what your guys' thoughts are on any of the topics we touched on. Hamburger helper. What's number one? Is it the cheeseburger? Is it the lasagna? Is it the stroganoff? We need to know. These are the hard hit questions over here at IBT. Make sure you guys are connecting with us off air as well. Steve is at Steve _Lawson 93 on Twitter. I'm between _ Seth FF. Eric at Fantasy Nav. Also, find the website inbetweenmedia.com. We have our dynasty trade value chart over there. It's been helping me. I've been making some moves. I'm buying in some leagues. I'm selling in some others. So make sure you're checking that out as well. Guys, we'll be back next Tuesday, 9:35 Eastern time. Same place, same bad damn channel. It's the IBT podcast. We'll catch you next time. Thank y'all.